and your next update will be on Newsroom, which is directly after this program. In 2013, the South African government adopted its first National Development Plan for 2030. This plan demonstrates government's commitment to build a development state central to which is capable, effective and efficient public service, an efficient public service. The NDP has joined forces with the University of South Africa in an annual public lecture on ways to improve the country's public service. Joining us in our Pretoria studio this morning, let's welcome Professor Harry Nengwekhulu, who is the Director of the School of Governance at the University of South Africa. So good to have you, Prof. Thanks for being our guest.
Thank you very much.
And in studio with me here in Joburg, we've got Dr. Dovhani Mamphiswana. Good to have you.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you. And of course, he's the Acting Director General of the Public Service Commission. So, Professor, let me begin with asking you this question in our Pretoria studio. Explain to us what the first National Development Plan actually is.
UNISA established the School of Governance in order to assist public and private sectors in terms of the vocational skills and academic skills. We targeted the National Development Plan Vision 2030 because it's the government vehicle for attempting to develop the country in all its facets. Our first public lecture was last year, the 30th of September. We invited the Minister in the Presidency, Honorable Hadebe, to come and talk about the role of the National Development Plan Vision 2030 in promoting democracy and strengthening good governance in the country. So this will be our second public lecture delivered by a government minister, because we think that universities are important in helping government to achieve its objective and goals by providing not only platform within which they can make presentation to communicate to the public, but also providing training skills in the area of vocational skills, intelligence skills, and so on. That's what we started. Thank you.
Well, and I can imagine that's where the UNISA's role comes in. But I'm going to ask you that in our next discussion. But let me just bring in the doctor here into the conversation. So I believe the theme for this year is building a capable, career-oriented, and professional public service to underpin a capable and developmental state in South Africa. That's the theme for this year.
Yes.
Why this theme?
I think this theme is key, particularly because the Public Service Commission, as a Chapter 10 institution, conducts oversight in the public service. But in its effort to ensure that indeed this realization of what the National Development Plan is talking about with regard to building of capable, career-oriented and professional public service, we need to begin to ask the Minister of Public Service and Administration, who is the custodian of effective and efficient developmental state or developmental public service. So this theme will create a platform where the Minister will outline the transformation journey in the public service and then begin to say what are some of the successes and the challenges that we have experienced over the years, and say how do we therefore consolidate that space to strengthen the public service, which is key in terms of government service delivery. Yeah,
it certainly is. I mean, service delivery is always at the root of most protests that we see, and I mean, we can just see what's happening now in Zandspruit. You know, there's a disgruntled community, there's a lot of violence, there's looting, there's things happening in communities that are making them very, very upset. And that's just the one example I'm giving because it just happens to be in our news right now. Professor, how does UNISA play a role in all of this? I know you touched on it briefly, just saying that universities need to get involved and talk about it. But from UNISA's perspective, talk to us about your role.
Yeah, our role there, when Council of UNISA and the Senate and the Vice Chancellor established the school in 2014, the main vision was to try to make UNISA an instrument for assisting not only a government, but also the private sector. And as a result, in our advisory board, the majority of members come from the public-private sector. We also got people from government. So UNISA's role is not only to provide platform, but also to provide training in issues of governance in all areas. We are more interested in issues of accountability, ethical conduct, and of course, the general issue of giving journalists implementation skills. Some of the challenges that we have in the country, which might perhaps have led to the upsurge of service delivery protests, is the shortage of implementation skills, not only within the public service, but also in the general public. So universities have got no obligation as institutions that are actually largely funded by government to respond to the topical issues that are affecting the country today. So we come in that particular context that we're not only the biggest university in South Africa and in Africa, but perhaps the oldest university, even though the School of Governance started in 2014. But it has already dealt with a number of issues that are very critical in the area of government. We have got a number of memorandum of understanding with a number of organizations, such as the Forum for African Former Heads of States and Government. We also have agreements with other government institutions. Our role is to facilitate and also to provide a platform as well as providing skills that are available within the University of South Africa.
Doctor, the strategic framework for this plan, what was it and how does it fit into the public service sector?
I think the view here is that if public service doesn't work, government cannot work. And therefore, government delivers its services through the public service. The houses that we see being built in the public, they're developed by government through the public service. The schools, the water, electricity, and all other services that are being delivered. And therefore, it's key that we have an effective government, a government that has got capacity to deliver on its mandate. And it is through this National Development Plan that we hope to achieve that we build the capacity within the state, the capacity that will fast track and facilitate the delivery of these effective services. But remember, these agents of change in terms of government are the public servants. The type of public servants that we have, if they are not geared to understand the transformation nature of the government, then they are likely to fail the government in its own mandate. And therefore, Public Service Commission, through its oversight role, it has identified number of gaps, number of successes, and it is to this end that we felt that through the partnership with the University of South Africa and with the leadership of the Minister for Public Service Administration, with the custodian of this, we can begin to outline some of this transformation journey. So this is a key theme in government because the National Development Plan talks about various sectors, but within the public service, key to it is how do we ensure that we have got this public service that is an employer of choice, and how do we make sure that public service is an employer of choice? We ensure that it is meritocratic based and people prefer public service because it is the biggest employer and the biggest service deliverer in the country. We cannot ignore that government cannot be a central prime driver of service delivery, and it has to have capacity in this regard.
Indeed. Let's just start wrapping up and talk about who are the speakers at this particular lecture and who's invited, who is going to be present there.
The key speaker here at our inaugural public lecture is the Minister for Public Service and Administration, Honorable Nengwekhulu Mahlodi.
Right.
He will be the only speaker, but of course there will be a panel wherein we have got Professor Samadoda Fikeni and Professor Musila. They are both from the University of South Africa. This is open to members of public, but key to it are public servants, because they need to understand what the minister is going to outline and what he's going to talk about. There will be public service commissioners who will be present. The top managers or top academics from UNISA will also be there, and members of the council. But by and large, it's open to members of public.
Fantastic. When is it?
It is on Wednesday, the 23rd.
23rd, next Wednesday.
Yes, 10 to 12 at UNISA Theo van Wyk Hall, which is the Senate Hall of the university.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much for talking to us here on the program. It's a lecture that's taking place at UNISA, the Theo van Wyk Hall, 23rd. That's next week, Wednesday, 10 to 12. Professor, thank you very much for being with us in our Cape Town studio. That's Professor Harry Nengwekhulu, who is the Director of School of Governments. I'm not sure. Did I say Pretoria studio? I hope so. Pretoria studio. I don't know if I said Cape Town or Pretoria, but thank you for joining us. He's in our Pretoria studios. Of course, that's where UNISA is. And Dr. Dovhani Mamphiswana, the Acting Director General of the PSC. Thank you. Thanks so much for talking to us. Let's take